guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over a very entertaining article titled City Trader Husband Who Was Left Just £325,000 of his heiress's ex £61.5 million fortune wins divorce appeal after gender bias claim. And a shout out to Mike for sending this article. A long story short, guys, and through the title there, this is about a guy who is about to make out potentially like a bandit in the divorce. This guy married an heiress. This woman was estimated to be worth like £61.5 million, which I think in US dollars is like $83 million, something like that. And they were married for 3 years. Surprise, surprise, it didn't work out. And he was only left with like £325,000. And ultimately, they're going to court over this whole thing. And first time the judge tries to screw him over. But the second time, the female judge realizes there's a problem here because his wife was shady in terms of the prenup and things she declared in terms of her wealth. And guess what? It's pretty much canceling the prenup. So this guy can make out like a bandit. And I think it's absolutely hilarious. Now, I got to say this. Initially, he got screwed in the process. Big surprise there. Now, we all know darn well, overwhelmingly, when there's a divorce, the guy gets screwed over royally. Guy can work his whole life, pay for everything, do everything right. Still, he gets hammered. But the situation is reversed. You're going to see here. Initially, the guy gets screwed over. But now, things have changed. And that'll be a pretty entertaining one to go over here. Now, let me say this. I stand by this, that I think it's ridiculous that you get a couple that gets married. And I don't care what assets, who has what prior to the marriage. I think in a divorce, that the assets prior to the marriage shouldn't be touched. It goes both ways. But we know it doesn't work that way, and it's total crap. Not to mention all the other unfair things that guys always get hammered with. So every once in a while, when it's the woman who gets hit by this, I think it's pretty funny. And I might add, this chick is an heiress, okay? She got her money from daddy. It's not like she went out there and worked very hard, risked her money, her credit, her time, her reputation to build an amazing company, and this fortune is the result of it all. No, she inherited it. And wait till you see that I'll let you see in real time. This is a pretty funny one. So it starts off, says here, a city trader who blamed gender prejudice after being handed £325,000 of his ex-wife's £60 million fortune, or family fortune, has won a bitter appeal case to have his settlement looked at again. Simon Entwistle's 3-year marriage to Jenny Hallowell ended in 2022, but he was awarded just 0.5% of her fortune. 0.5%? You know darn well if the situation was reversed, we all know this, that would not happen if it was a woman marrying a wealthy guy. He blamed the gender prejudice for the decision and has won his case at the Court of Appeals in London, meaning his settlement will not be considered again at the High Court. Appeals judge ruled Jenny, his now ex, had engaged in fraudulent behavior by not declaring almost £48 million of her £66 million personal fortune whilst making a prenup agreement. So they did a prenup, but she neglected to mention a whole lot of other money she had. And by the way, whenever they give estimates to what people are worth, we all know darn well people are worth way more. It's hidden away in trusts and stuff like that no public record of and all. The couple had married a lavish £500,000 wedding in Paris in August of 2019, and Mr. Entwistle, what a name! You guys talk about like a British name, Entwistle, enjoyed the trappings of being married into a family of exceptional wealth, it was said. They were living in a £4.5 million villa in Dubai, gifted to Ms. Hallowell by her father, wealthy Dubai-based British businessman Neil Hallowell. But they split up after 3 years, with Miss Hallowell getting lawyers to order her then husband out of the family home with just 48 hours notice in August of 2022. What? Kicked out in 48 hours? Again, if the situation was reversed, there's no way it would happen to a woman. We all know it. The pair, who are both 42 years old, then went to court over money with Mr. Entwistle, originally from Bolton, asking for just £2.5 million from his interior designer, ex-wife's personal fortune. Okay, so he's just asking for £2.5 million. And she's estimated, one says 61.5, the other says 66. The point is, £2.5 million, drop in the bucket to what she has, and he'll walk away. Well, no, can't do that. Mr. Entwistle claimed he required £36,000 a year for flights and £26,000 a year on a meal plan just for himself because he admitted, "I can't even cook an omelet," the court heard. Now, that's freaking ridiculous. But then again, you've heard a lot of these high-profile divorces of the amount of money ex-wives get that are married to these athletes or businessmen, actors, you get the point. What they get a month. Now, at least they usually have kids. These people don't have kids. And this guy can learn to cook a fucking omelet. Well, the judge told him, being married to a rich person for 3 years does not suddenly catapult you into a right to live like that after the relationship has ended. The judge said that to him. Well, I honestly agree with that. But here's the thing, Your Honor. Again, if this was reversed, and it was a woman here, you bet your ass he wouldn't be saying that to her. Well, the painful divorce from Mr. Hallowell culminated with an award in his favor of £400,000. The sum was reduced to $325,000 after a deduction for Miss Hallowell's costs when a divorce judge said the 3-year marriage did not entitle him to maintain a lavish lifestyle once the relationship ended. That would not happen if the situation was reversed. We all know it. But he was left with 0.5% share of the pot after the judge upheld a prenup agreement the pair had signed promising they would each keep their own assets in the event of a split. Appealing their ruling, Mr. Entwistle said he was a victim of gender prejudice and the prenup had been invalidated by Miss Hallowell, having failed to disclose assets worth £48 million to 73% of her wealth on documents when he signed it. Well, that was a stupid screw-up. And I like these terms he's using, gender prejudice, because we know if it was opposite, it would happen. Now, Lady Justice King has ruled that the non-disclosure by the heiress amounted to fraudulent behavior, which had invalidated the prenup. Invalidated the prenup, so in other words, well, I guess we're not going to count the prenup, and therefore, he can have a piece of her pie. I'm sure her daddy's loving this. The female judge allowed Mr. Entwistle's appeal and sent the case back to the divorce courts, ordering it to be recalculated as if the prenup agreement did not exist. Uh-oh. You heard that. Act as if the prenup didn't exist. Therefore, he's getting a piece of the pie. I can imagine her father losing his mind. Willful or fraudulent breach of that agreement, such that the disclosure made bears no resemblance of the true wealth of a party, is capable of being a material non-disclosure, as it deprives the other party of the information that they had agreed is necessary in order for them to decide whether to agree to a prenuptial agreement, she said. Since the husband in the instant case was deliberately deprived of information which he had been agreed to, he should have, in my judgment, the agreement cannot stand. In other words, again, in her view, the prenup is invalid, so send it back, and, well, good luck. Now, what's probably going to happen is that they'll probably work out a settlement, except this time probably he'll be asking more than £2.5 million. After the original hearing, High Court Judge Mr. Justice Francis found that the husband's personal assets were worth around £850,000, including a flat in Salford, where he had lived with his first wife before moving to Dubai. Miss Hallowell, by contrast, was worth around £66 million, with her wealthy father having gifted her valuable assets and put some of his business interests in her name. I'm willing to bet you Daddy did that, obviously, for tax benefits and things like that. Miss Hallowell, by contrast, was worth £66 million. I read that part. Hallowell had offered him first £500,000, then £800,000 to avoid a court battle, but he refused, holding out for the $2.5 million because he realized he could get it. And if the situation was reversed, it would happen with a woman doing that. The parties went through this painful litigation, and the husband is actually worse off now than he would have been if he never brought the claim in the first place, which is tragic for everybody, the judge commented. So this article jumps around from details to details, but it's important here. But he declined to hand the husband any more money, calling his budget of needs aspirational, including an astonishing claim for £36,000 a year for flights and £26,000 a year on a meal plan just for himself. This is before the female judge ruled in the guy's favor. He said to me, "I can't even cook an omelet." Well, my answer to that is, learn. It's not difficult, said the judge. Well, I agree with the judge. You do not have to be a master chef to learn how to eat reasonably well. He added, being married to a rich person for 3 years does not suddenly catapult you into the right to live like that after the relationship has ended. Oh yeah? Well, again, if the situation was reversed and it was a wealthy guy here and the woman was married to the guy 3 years and got used to that lifestyle, something tells me the judge would not be so, you don't deserve that type of thing. Bullcrap. Given that his costs were £450,000, the award left Mr. Entwistle $125,000 out of pocket, a scenario his barrister argued would not have materialized if the roles were reversed. You bet your ass that would have happened. Challenging the judge's ruling at the Court of Appeal, Deborah Bangay, KC, for Mr. Entwistle said, the judge was warned against gender prejudice but failed to heed the warning. Had the positions been reversed, it is very unlikely that he would have so ungenerously assessed the needs of a wife after a 6-year relationship. Ding, ding, ding. So obviously they were married 3 years and obviously were together prior to that. She also argued that the prenup agreement, which has been key to the husband's low award, was invalidated by Miss Halliwell's failure to disclose her full wealth, stating that she was worth about $18 million rather than the $66 million fortune. Lady Justice King, giving her ruling, made no finding on the gender prejudice argument, but said that in the prenup, the wife disclosed the $18 million of assets, including multi-million-pound property portfolios in Dubai and France. Again, I guarantee you there's way more assets out there. It's just hidden. Shell companies and trusts and all that type of stuff. The wife, however, failed to include the big amount. That included almost $40 million worth of business assets, $8 million worth of beachfront land in Dubai, and $1.6 million house in Wimbledon lived in by her mother. The husband and wife entered the agreement on the day they married, July 12, 2019. Upon divorce, each party would retain their own separate property and split any jointly owned property as to 50% each. At the heart of the dispute is whether the wife's undoubted failure to disclose the majority of her wealth should have the consequence that the agreement should not be upheld by the court. In the present case, the non-disclosure of the majority of her assets by the wife was undoubtedly deliberate. So in other words, at the end of the day, after all this, it was ruled non-disclosure, fraudulent behavior, and it's going to be, the prenup is now invalidated. And it's going back to the courts. So what I think is probably going to happen is they'll settle, and he's going to get a lot more than £2.5 million. Now, I don't know how this is going to play out. Again, it's not official yet, but the point is, for once, the guy is actually something in his favor. Initially not. Big surprise there. He's being screwed over by the judge, but now the other judge, the female judge of all people, is seeing it for the guy's way. But anyhow, guys, I thought it'd be a funny one to go over. Now, I'm going to read some comments. There's like 2,000 comments on this, and they're overwhelmingly all from the UK, because this is from the UK. And guys are saying, oh, what I'm saying. So anyhow, back to what I said in the beginning, I do think that divorce process, it's nonsense. You get married, in my opinion, what she has or you have prior to the marriage, that's yours in the event of a split. I think that's right. But then after you get married, as long as the wife or the husband goes both ways, doesn't screw it up by cheating or whatever, then you can split things up fairly. That can be debated, but you get the point. But in this situation, since it's always the guy getting screwed over, I think it's pretty funny in the situation where the wife gets screwed over. Because you know what? And usually I think it was Halle Berry years ago that was raising holy hell because she was getting really got the shaft, no pun intended, and other female actresses. But you know what? It's been happening to you guys forever. Now, a few comments for a wrap up this video. One guy says here, I agree that if he was worth 60 odd million, she would have received a far higher amount. In that regard, he's correct to appeal, but they were only married a short time, so he'll get nothing like half. He ain't gonna get half, that I can assure you. Another one. Wouldn't it be ironic if the judge now awards him the $18 million that his ex had claimed was her total wealth? I agree with the judge. If the roles were reversed, she would have come away with a high annual amount plus a property to boot. But regardless, she lied and almost like she wasn't 100% about the relationship and the marriage lasting from the very beginning. Another one. This guy says here, when I went through my divorce, my ex, house, mortgage, solely in my name, she never worked or contributed during the entire time. I worked and paid for everything. Cars, holidays, mortgage, all the bills, etc. The solicitor said, you can fight if you want, and to be honest, I can take your money, but honestly, the judge in divorce courts will side with her, up to you. Right there. I cut my losses, house sold, she got half. Even half of my pension I had paid into for 10 years before I clapped eyes on her. She even took my loyal staffy. But hey, life is. He says, now I'm single. Got a staffy who loves me. I think that's a dog. Never getting married again. Nice flat that I'm buying. And the ex, no hard feelings, but I wouldn't piss on her if she was on fire. Anyhow, that's enough comments. So anyhow, guys, I'll be going to go over here. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And guys, you find any good stories you want me to cover or any good articles, find any articles where, again, the guy's actually making out like a bandit in a situation like this, let me send it my way. I appreciate that. Any good articles, and I'll definitely cover them. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.